Welcome to Faith Break, finding God moments in your everyday. Each week on Faith Break, hosts Karen Luke and Ann Gallagher bring spiritual refreshment to your daily life. Today's episode for December 29th, 2024 celebrates the Feast of the Holy Family. Karen and Ann welcome special guest Dan Hofford to explore the joys and challenges of raising a family in faith in today's real world.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Faith Break, where we take a break to find our God moments in our everyday life. I am Ann Gallagher.
And I'm Karen Luke.
We are co-workers, friends, parents, and today we are talking about the Holy Family, and we have a special friend with us.
Yes, Dan Hofford, who is our finance director for the parishes. Welcome to Faith Break.
Thank you for having us, or having me.
We decided we needed a dad. Since we're talking about families today, it wouldn't be right to just have two moms. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. Karen, you want to tell us your God moment? I know you had one ready to go.
Yeah, so my God moment in the midst of the craziness of life and politics and family and getting the kids ready for school or trying to get them ready for school, I was listening to the news on the way in the other day. And I was stopped at a light, and all of a sudden I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And I turned on Matt Mahar's In the Room.
I love that song.
Have you ever heard that song, Dan? Oh my gosh. It is like my favorite thing. We'll put a little link to but I just turned that on and I drove the rest of the way to work. I was like, oh, it was just like, it was the best. It was settled me. It was just like exactly what I needed. And I was singing so loud, I lost my voice before I got to work because it was like that loud.
You were loud?
Yeah, I know, right? I know. Yeah. All by myself in the car. It's great. I sounded perfect.
Do you embarrass your kids singing in the car? Or do you only sing in the car when you're alone?
Oh, no. I sing in the car with the kids. Nice. Emma has gotten to the point where she turns the radio off when we pull into the parking lot at school. Because when she opens up the door, she doesn't even want the music, even if it's low, she turns it off. She's a brat about it.
That's so funny.
It's like as soon as she opens up the door.
Does she tell you hey, Mom, can you stop here like a block away from school?
No. She actually lets me drive her to the spot, which is a whole nother thing. I hate drop off.
One of my youth ministers, when I was in high school, he had kids who were in middle school or younger at the time. And he would talk about how he would roll the windows down and play the adult soft rock station and just sing along as he pulled into the kids' school pickup just to embarrass him on purpose.
For Halloween.
Elevator jazz or something. Right?
So good.
For Halloween, I had a clown wig on and a Spider-Man mask, and I picked Connor up from school on Halloween listening to crazy music. So it was great.
He was probably a good sport about it.
He loves it. Yeah.
He doesn't seem like an embarrassable person.
No, because he's just as embarrassing.
I don't think you could embarrass him. That's
all right.
Funny.
So, Dan, or should we go to Dan? What?
I've got one that kind of feeds off of your song, actually, because you talked about In the Room. And that song's all about, I just want to be in the room when it happens, right? Like, when God moves, I want to be there and see it. And so last week at youth group, one of our teens brought two friends who had never come before. They're not parishioners. They just he's like, can I bring two friends? I'm like, absolutely. And they came, and I could tell they weren't really sure, what was going on, what was the vibe and stuff. But when they left, they were like, we loved it. And they came back last night, and they're thinking about coming on the search retreat and NCYC and all of our. So that was a kind of a win. And I was like, that's just so cool when you see a young person taking the initiative to invite somebody else and then have them come back.
And then they like it. And
that was my God moment.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Go God. Okay, we're going to throw you in the fire.
Yeah.
God
So we
moment.
were in Boston this past weekend for a dance convention competition for my daughter. And on the way back, it was quiet. Everybody was asleep. And I had the music on, and it was nice. And, we've been just real busy lately, as a lot of people are. And it was a moment where I remembered where God brought me from to where I am now.
I love that.
And it was just good. It was a good reminder.
So. Cool.
Amazing that you can be in a car with your family and it's quiet.
That in itself was almost a miracle. Yeah.
I feel like my kids are quiet in the car, because they have the earbuds. Do your kids have? Mine are older than yours are, but my children both have headphones in pretty much all the time as though it's part of their body and they're listening to music or like a video or something.
Yeah, I have to fight to make that not the case. Yeah.
And sometimes I don't know if they have them on or not because they have long hair. So I'm like talking to them and they may not even be listening or hearing me. It's crazy.
We drove to Myrtle Beach when Emma was like 2 or 3, and she either talked or sang or hummed the entire 17 hours we were in the car. Even if she was watching a video, we got there. Luckily, my in-laws were there. So I'm like, here you go. And I took a 1.5 mile walk on the beach. I'm like, I just need quiet.
In silence.
Oh my God. Yeah. So no, I don't know what that's like even now. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
Holy Family.
Holy Family. Today is the Feast of the Holy Family. So the first Sunday after Christmas is when we celebrate Jesus, Mary, and Joseph and what life must have been like for them as Jesus was growing up. And it is a special feast day for me because I was married on the Feast of the Holy Family and both of my children were baptized
No
on
way.
the Feast of the Holy Family. Yeah.
That's so
We
cool.
had a Christmas wedding. You had a
Thanksgiving
wedding. I don't know when your anniversary is.
February 18th.
Oh, like
I didn't even realize I was on the spot. Right now.
Valentine's Day. Oh my gosh.
Right?
You got it right.
Yeah.
You got it right. Luz will be happy. So we're here to talk about how holy our families are.
That's really funny.
Yeah, because we might work for the church, but we have the same struggles as everybody else does with raising our kids in faith, and maybe even some extra struggles because like our kids get church as part of the package deal.
Yeah, I would say a little bit more so.
Mm-hmm.
I know like my kids don't differentiate church from my work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like everything, even if we go to church as a family, it's like mom's working because somebody's going to tap me on the shoulder or I have to go fill up the toilet paper. Whatever it is.
else needs to happen.
Whatever it is. So, but Dan, you're not a parishioner within our parish. So I just want to ask you, like, how is it for you? Because you're on a different spectrum. You work for the church, but you're not.
You're worshiping somewhere
You're
else,
worshiping
right?
somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of both. The job is more of a 9-to-5 office administrative, but I do try to treat it like a ministry job. Mm-hmm. If I didn't, I'd be working somewhere else, paychecks or wherever. So, and we are also pretty involved in our own church. And now, I'm forming relationships, and even my wife, and kids with folks from these communities. So what was your question?
How is it worshiping with your family? Like, do you feel holy when you?
Do you have a hard time getting your kids to church, or are you guys pretty much?
We get busy, that's our biggest challenge, and I think it's the challenge for a lot of people, most people nowadays, especially. And they'll say us a lot that's Satan's way of trying to get us away from God to keep us busy. So we have to be intentional about that. And my daughter, fortunately, our church has a really good youth group, so she likes that. When she's not doing ballet or something else, she'll try to go to youth group on Wednesdays. Dom sometimes doesn't want to go to church, but
I think back to when my kids were real little, and just working in youth ministry has been such a cool thing, really, for my family and my kids. Because even when they were babies, I would like bring them with me to retreats, or so I have all these great memories and even pictures of like teenagers holding my little babies, and I just think it was good for my kids to be around teenagers as they were growing up, and it was good for the teenagers to be around family. And like, I'm thinking of this one picture I have, and Bridget is like maybe 4 or 5, and she's sitting on the lap of a teenage boy, and she's talking to another teenage boy, and you can tell she's just like giving them the business, and they're just like smiling at her, and it's just such a cool, I don't know, there's nothing that replicates church community like that. That there's a whole bunch of people of all ages and from all walks of life who care about my kids, because they're part of this family that's bigger than our family, you know?
Well, it goes back to the whole like saying it takes a village to raise a family. And I really feel that that's true within our Christian faith, because we have the other families that are going through the same thing and know the struggles. And I love at St. Catherine's, we have two baby. Okay. What I want to say is going to sound really bad, but two older women, and they'll see a baby and they'll just go up and grab them and love them and give the parents just a breather, because we all know what it's taken just to get into the door.
It's so hard to bring your little ones to church, especially if you're new. And I think both of Father Rob and Father Mike before him they both are really good about having kids in church and like saying to people like, don't feel bad if your kid's making noise or crying or whatever. Like, we want you here. And to have those families show up and just have a random parishioner be like,
I mean,
excited to see your
good,
kid.
Yeah,
like,
it's in a good way. But it's, and it's also really good to see all ages at all of the masses too.
Yeah.
And just the welcoming aspect of that. And I love when there's a baptism at the Saturday masses, because that tends to be at St. Catherine's, it tends to be more adults, I guess, going. So when there is a baptism, they're all like, yay, there's
super excited.
Yeah, super excited. It's just like that feeling of there's more to it than just the 3 or 4 or 5 of us in our home.
I think, it's interesting because being a parent who works for the church, I feel like I've had really positive experiences and some not so positive experiences too. Like when Liam was born, my oldest, I was working at a different parish, and like right in the time between when I had accepted the job at Transfig, but I hadn't left the previous parish yet, I had somebody who I had sat in front of in Mass for years and say to me, you make me dizzy when you rock the baby during Mass, like during the music. Because Liam loved the music, and I would like,
okay, so I don't have babies anymore, and I still rock back and forth to the music.
Then when I came to Transfig, Liam by that time was like 1.5. It was like, so he was like right at the age where like he's running all over the place. You can't like contain him in church. And so I didn't bring him for like 6 months after I started working. I just came to Mass by myself, and I left Brian home with the baby. And when I finally did, though, we sat in the back, and we happened to sit in front of, you guys never got to meet them, but Jack and Mary Lou Stotts were like founding members of the parish, barn people. And I sat in front of them, and they were amazing. They like played with him. They were so happy he was there. They were, and I was just like, okay, this is how it should be for everybody when they get their act together and finally bring their kid to church. Because, like, it's hard. It's not easy. It's really not easy to get out the door and get there.
I mean, it's not easy with teenagers getting out the door either.
No, for whole different reasons.
I mean, it's just, I see so many families. It's so funny. We talk about Mendon and Pittsford time where the Mass has already started and there's like nobody in church. And then all of a sudden, by the first reading, it's packed. Yep. Because so many people are like finally getting in. And I'll stay in back and people are like, oh, sorry. I'm like, hey, you're here. And then I'll see the teenagers come in and they're like, ugh. But they're there, right? I mean, that's what matters. It's not about if they come in sweatpants or if their hair is disheveled or whatever. They're there.
We call it Hofford time in my house.
Is it?
10 minutes.
And I have a hard time getting out even
So
without the kids
you're
involved.
one of them.
What are some of the ways you guys, when you think back on like raising your kids, where you felt you had like a win, like in raising your kids in faith? You've had them. I know you have.
Have I?
Yeah. Like, or maybe they were traditions when the kids were little that helped you to pass on your faith to your kids. Or
I think for me, it's the real moments. It's not, so our kids go to a Christian school, they go to youth group, we go to church, we do all those things. But if we're not being real at home, not that doesn't matter, but it starts with us being real at home, not being hypocrites, right? Yeah. And they're going to do what we do and not what we tell them, right? That's how most people learn. That's how kids learn. They do what their parents do. And so the disciplines, right, when they see us praying and reading and things like that, those are important. And I think some of the most important times is when we actually humble ourselves, and we're not perfect. Yeah. We're Christians, and I work at a church and all that, but like you said earlier, we're just like any other family. And when I'm cranky and angry and impatient with my wife or my kids or the world or whatever, or I fail in some way, that's okay. Yeah. As long as I acknowledge that and humble myself and change, right? And
apologizing to your kid is a big thing.
Apologizing to your kids is huge. Yeah. Is huge. And I think those are the moments where it really hits home for them. Yeah.
I was thinking about when my kids were real little and we would always pray with them before bed. Like, did you do this with your kids? Like have a special bedtime routine and your bedtime prayers that you do? And so I had a prayer that I would pray over both of my kids at bedtime. And then Brian had his own thing that he would do. And actually he still does with Bridget every night. I feel like she would be embarrassed if she knew I said that on the podcast because she's in middle school. But we each had kind of our own moment with them. And the funny thing is that Brian he won't tell me what he does to pray with our kids. Aww. It's like private between them. I mean, I think I say the prayer in front of him all the time, but he's like got his own thing that he does with our kids. And sometimes, on very rare occasions, our oldest will still let us tuck him in at the end of the night. Even though he's like a big teenager. Like, you can't push those moments, but like every once in a while there's like an open moment and we can still get in there and do it. Sure. So I don't know. It's just, I think that was real important for us to set up is like just the routines of, and not even like big fancy prayers, but just like moments in the day. Like we used to say grace before dinner all the time and somehow that fell by the wayside. But we, to have those bedtime prayers and, you get in the car trip to go on a road trip and you say a prayer when you get in the car for safe travels or whatever. All those little things, they like make a difference, I think, because they weave all these God moments into the fabric of your
make it a habit and planting seeds. And we do at night, not every night, but majority of the nights out of the week, we've got maybe 15 to 20 memory verses that so I quit, all right, Dom, John 3:16 or Maddie, So they're building that up, and then in the mornings we've been doing this. Prior to we homeschooled for a couple of years, so one of the nice things about that is we had a lot of time to do devotionals and prayer and things like that. And they get that at school. They have chapel and things like that, but it's still important that their parents do it. So. Now, on the way to school, I will hand one of them my phone, and they'll read usually 3 verses of Proverbs.
In the car?
In the car.
Nice.
Okay, guys, which one did you like most, or which one do you have a question about? Which one struck a chord? And we just talk through that. And, so it's usually a 5 to 10 minute conversation, but Proverbs is very practical stuff. Yeah. So I think it's just a good way to start the day and good teachable moments.
That's awesome. And Christian music in the car.
Yeah.
Although I carpooled to a robotics competition with Liam last year, and I had like a gang of the team members in the car, and he's like, "Mom, no Christian music, no show tunes." Like, all right, you guys are going to be playing video games in the back, but I promise I won't.
I love the moments where, like, I feel like a win moment is when the kids will come to me with a problem. Yeah. And they will already have a solution based on how we are as a family, or like we have school bucks at school, so they don't carry any cash. It's all like electronic. So I got a notice that it was low. And I'm like, I just put money on this so I can go and look at everything. And there were like multiple bags of chips. Each day. So I was like, Connor, what are you doing? He goes, Mom, I was buying for my friends. We had such a good day in math. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
A round of
So
chips
he's like,
for
a round of
everybody.
chips for everybody.
Yeah.
So he's just like celebrating these wins with his friends. But I'm like, I can't be mad at him.
Right.
Because he's like, he's giving and
Sharing, being
he's sharing
generous.
and being
Right.
generous
With your
and
money.
with my money. But hey, but it's those moments that you're like, all right, cool. Like you can't be mad at it because it's what you have been teaching and
Right.
living.
Yeah.
So, and then just another quick thing, Jared and I, for our anniversary, we did a family dinner, and out of the blue, Emma tinks her glass. She goes, I'd like to pray for you too.
Aww.
Because of you, we're here. And I'm like, oh my word. But it was like the whole like symbolism of like you were saying with your God moment, where we were to where we are and how it's all just complete, right? And like, oh, I would have never.
Especially because our kids are all like older now, in middle school, high school ages. And, one of the cool experiences I was able to have as a youth minister raising kids is that we do a summer service retreat every summer where we go and stay in a convent with a family of nuns. Or they're not nuns. They would be very clear about that. They're, apostolic sisters out in the world. So we've stayed there for a week every year since my kids were babies, and I would bring the babies and so all those sisters are like grandmas to my kids now because they've just had this relationship over all these years, and they're amazing. Like they're feisty and they're just, just out in the world trying to work for justice every day, and sometimes in pretty radical ways. And my kids have had the chance to just have these role models who like just don't, they'll go to any extent to like bring the gospel and bring God's love to the people who are the most on the margins. And I think that's been really a big blessing for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so should we talk about the actual Holy Family? I brought something for show and tell. Yeah. This is my favorite image of the Holy Family. And back when I was at a different parish, I think the artist or whatever company he's representing must have sent these to like
every parish.
Yep. So it was in the pastoral associate's office, who was a friend of mine, and I was so drawn to this image. I would like go in there and I would just be like, can I just look at that for a while? And we're like, all right, can I borrow it? And I want to do this reflection thing. Can I just? And finally, she was just like, just take it. You obviously love this so much. So this was a gift from her. And what I like about it is just how intimate and human it is. And I think especially for Catholics, we get this image of the Holy Family and it's all like stained glass and like, very elevated. And I just know it wasn't like that. It was like the things that they had to deal with were pretty tough, right? And I think Joseph and Mary had to be really connected. And I just love the love, the physicality of it, and the deep love that's evident between the three of them in that sculpture. And I have several other Holy Family images up around my home too. I kind of collect them. So I don't know. What do you guys think about when you think about Jesus and Mary and Joseph, at what things might have been like for them as Jesus was growing up?
Yeah, it had to be brutal. I mean, right? I wake up every day and I turn on a faucet and I have clean water.
Right.
It would just, and we're very fortunate and very rich, right? Because there's still probably the majority, but a lot of people in this world that don't have that live like that. But still, just think about that: having a child in a barn,
right,
and
right. Not at home,
and not having the modern medicines that we have. But Joseph is, I think he's probably, when people say what's great men of the Bible, right? You think about David and Solomon and Paul and John and all these guys, but Joseph really strikes a chord with me because there's really not much said about him at all.
No.
And I heard this once in I don't know if you've heard of the Bible Project. They do these YouTube lessons, And one time he had a term for this, but it was I guess a Jewish term or something, but it was a word that described that how certain things were placed in the Bible because they were significant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it got me thinking one day, think about Joseph, right? Think about even today, and even though our society has changed a lot, but if two people were engaged, right, and imagine the shame that a man would feel, or the embarrassment or the anger if his fiance was pregnant, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Even in today's society. Now take that back 2,000 years ago in that culture. I can't even fathom that, what he had to go through, right? And then to be the earthly father, but not really. And then, but here's what's cool about it is to me, it's like, okay, he was entrusted with raising the Son of God. That is, in my mind, the most significant man besides Jesus in the Bible.
I second that.
Yet,
yes,
there's virtually nothing written about him.
And we don't have any of his words. He never speaks in the Bible.
And here's what that says to me, and this is an encouragement to men in today's society. Be insignificant, right? And here's what I mean by that is, and I don't, I went to North Park University in Chicago, and the motto is lead lives of significance or something like that. And I love that, right? And as Christians, we go out and we do want to be significant. We want to do significant things and share the gospel and change the world, right? But so often our hearts are led astray. And, even in my job, right? I want to do really well, and sometimes, I get swelled up with pride and things like that. But it's like, wait, Joseph did the greatest thing that probably any man could ever do. And in the greatest book ever written, he's not recognized in there. Almost.
Yeah. Only a few verses.
A few verses. So
Yep.
to me, it's like, you know what?
Yep.
I need to not worry so much about what people think about me. I need to not worry so much about the mark I'm going to leave, my legacy, and just be humble and do my job as a dad, as a husband, as a husband, and then as a dad, and then as a friend, right? And not worry about what gets recorded, not worry about what people see. That's what I mean by be insignificant. You want to be significant, but in a way that you're not worried about being remembered for being significant.
When we were talking about, the ways we prayed over our kids and how we tried to model faith for them rather than tell them what to do. I mean, you look at the person that Jesus grew into, and it didn't come from nowhere, right? We know he was fully human and fully divine, but we don't know how he came into that identity. He must have grown into it somehow. And he did that with the guidance of his parents. They gave him what he needed to be the person he needed to be, that God wanted him to be. That's the legacy, right?
Right.
He raised Jesus.
Right.
It's kind of a big deal.
He got the gold medal.
Right.
Without getting the gold medal. He achieved the gold medal without getting the gold medal.
And here
basically.
I think parenting is hard.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
Mary and Joseph didn't have to deal with phones and the internet, but
no, but they had to deal with losing them. No.
Well, when I think about Joseph, I think about how he led his family through hard decisions, because he was the one. Yeah. I mean, Mary was totally, intimately close with God too. We're going to talk about her too. But for Joseph, he had all these dreams, right? He had dreams. He had a dream that told him to stand by Mary. And then he had a dream that told him to take his family and go to Egypt. Yeah. And then he had a dream that told him to bring them back. And when I think of the discernment and the trust that, what his personal relationship with God must have been like, that he could receive those movements, those nudges from God, and just have faith to do what he needed to do.
And crazy stuff, right?
It's insane.
Hey, marry your wife even though she's pregnant,
Right.
right? Hey, the king is going to kill you if you don't leave, right?
Right.
And imagine what people must be saying. Dude, you're crazy.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Why would you marry that woman? What? You're going to flee because King Herod wants to kill your child? Dude, get off your high horse.
And
You're
Egypt
crazy.
wasn't like next door. It was way
That was a
far
track.
away.
That was a track.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, as we were conversing, I was just thinking all the moments of Joseph that we know of, he's sleeping.
Holy napping.
Holy napping. Yeah, going back to holy napping. But
So maybe that could be part of our jobs, right?
Yeah.
holy
Hey, Rob, I'm
yeah.
gonna go home and take a nap.
Well,
This is-
Ann and
I have the communal nap couch in my office that
but we
people can
were
take
actually
turns on.
talking to Rob about this a couple weeks ago when we were talking about our Advent podcast, and holy napping came up, and with everything that he's been doing, I'm like, holy napping is okay. Like you can do it, and it's okay. Yeah. So we've already told him about it. So I'm sure if we're at our desks, holy napping, it'll be okay.
I've
wanna-
used the couch once or twice.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Just it's for everybody.
Well, I am not a big fan of scripture passages of what it means to be a family or how to parent because it's very old school. Like,
Oh yeah, when we were prepping for this
my gosh.
episode, Karen's like, I'm going to go see what the Bible has to say about parenting.
don't do it. Don't. Because it's all like Old Testament.
Spare the rod, spoil the
Spare
child.
the rod.
Yeah.
If it's not healthy, right?
So maybe, well, like Dan was saying before, they don't do what we say, they do what we do.
yeah.
Okay. So maybe like, what did the Holy Family do?
Yeah. But I went
That-
to Pope Francis.
Okay.
So I'm not even looking at the Bible right now. But I found, I know. I'll just say it.
Sorry. That's good too.
But I love Pope Francis. He has a quote that perfect families don't exist.
That's
like,
true.
That's like the quote. And it says, going further, perfect families do not exist. They must not discourage us, though. Quite the opposite. Love is something we learn. Love is something we live. Love grows, and it is forged by the concrete situations with each particular family experiences. Love is born and constantly develops amid lights and shadows, and love can flourish in men and women who try not to make conflict the last word, but rather a new opportunity. And I was like,
Yeah.
like the season of Advent, waiting, hope, this new opportunity. Every day is a new day, a new beginning. And I'm sure the Holy Family, we think it's perfect, but I'm sure that they had their struggles
moments. Yeah.
and their moments.
Right. The church talks about how the family is the school for holiness. And I think that is like spot on because it's where you're tested the most, right? The people you're closest to are the ones you're going to have the fewest masks with, and they're going to see all of you, right? Not just the Christmas card perfect image. They're going to see you like. So this episode's going to air 2 days after Christmas, or a couple days after Christmas, and everybody's still going to be home for the holidays, and which is fantastic. But you know how when you've been home with your family for a bit and you're all kind of like. So I think maybe for our viewers and listeners to just keep in mind that there's no such thing as a holy family, but also all families are holy, right? And they're where we kind of hone our skills of holiness because we have to practice. Yeah. We have to practice what it means to be loving.
Have you ever
when it's
picked
not
up?
easy.
Have you ever picked up your kid from the babysitter or school, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, he was so great today. He's so sweet, and he's or she's this and that," and you're thinking like, "Who are you talking about?"
My kid?
Right? I mean, I've
Yes.
multiple times, and it's because they feel most comfortable with us that they can let it all just go. And I remember picking up my kids from school, and they were holding it in for so long, like any anger and angst and frustration. And then when we get home and I'm like, oh, it's going to be perfect. I'm going to make dinner and we're going to sit and do homework. And it's like,
It all comes out.
yeah,
Yep.
it's just, remember Pope Francis and the Holy Family.
We're going to talk about the story of the 12-year-old Jesus in the temple in next week's episode. So which is the only story we have about Jesus as a child/teenager, right? So, but I just think that Jesus' relationship with his mother must have been something really special. And I want to mention, speaking of scripture, the wedding at Cana story, which is so like the stories we have about the Holy Family. Like we have the infancy narrative in Matthew, which is kind of from Joseph's point of view. We've got the kings and all that stuff with the flight to Egypt. And then the Luke infancy narrative is more focused on Mary. And we've got, the Annunciation of Gabriel, and we've got the visitation with Elizabeth and the shepherds and angels and the presentation in the temple and the finding in the temple when he's 12. And Mark doesn't even have any stories about Jesus before his baptism. But in John, we have the beginning of Jesus' public ministry happens at the wedding at Cana. I think it's in John 2. And it's so fascinating to me how this comes. Because like Mary's at a wedding and Jesus and Mary are guests at this wedding and they run out of wine. And Mary's like, hang on, I'm going to talk to my son about this. And she's like, Jesus, there's no wine. And he's like, it's not my time, Mom. And then she tells the stewards, just do whatever Jesus tells you to do. Right? And I find it so funny. She's like, yeah, it's your time. Like, come on. Like you're 33 years old. Like, it's time to start your ministry. But like, it just seems like such a natural thing when I think about my kids and the back and forth that we have with them. And again, just like a very human moment, because think about it from Jesus. Like he waited a long time to start his ministry. Like 30 years old back then was not like he wasn't a young adult. He was he was an older adult or midlife adult or whatever. Midlife. And so first of all, she believed he could do it. She knew he could do it. And even though I don't know, do we want to say he wasn't sure? Do we want to say he needed a little bit of encouragement? Yeah. But she,
It was funny. She was almost like, yeah, I know you're the son of God, but I'm your mother.
Right.
So do it, okay?
Yeah, because I said so, right?
Whatever, Ma,
I just love it. So, but again, like, that's a moment when he's an adult. But like you think about all the moments that led up to that, the years and years. And, because we don't hear from Joseph after Jesus's, early life, we think maybe he was not around. Maybe he died or something. Like he's not around for the crucifixion the way that Mary is around for the crucifixion. So Jesus must have had to take care of her, right? He learned the family business and he was in the same town for all those years.
Yeah,
and
took on that head of the household role.
Mm-hmm. And even from the cross was taking care of his mother.
Yeah. When he told John to take her. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think we can relate to that too as like parents, but also children who have parents who are getting older, the desire to you're caring for your kids. You're also caring for your parents. Like it's a lot.
Sentimental.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going back to The Chosen.
Of course you are.
I know. I've been thinking, as we talk about these things, I keep thinking about that. It's a good illustration, yeah.
The wedding at Cana is what popped in my head. And just I love that show because it just shows the humanness of it. Like you can read it, but like just putting, I don't even want to say characters, but people's faces and just everything. Yeah. And that's exactly what you could see, that mother-son relationship there. Yeah. And he's like, no, not yet. And she's like, come on, and it's just, so if you haven't watched it, I don't know why, because I've been saying it for 3 years, but, yeah. And they were so close in age. We also have to remember that, they were only about 14, 15 years apart.
Yeah, that's true.
So
right.
Like crazy, Mary was probably our age during the time of
when Jesus died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
35
35 when I had my first child, so
Yeah.
You know, I could have been a grandparent.
Yeah.
My goodness.
In those terms, or a great grandparent almost, practically.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we talked about our kids and the teenagers at youth group, you know, it had to have been like that with Mary and Jesus. Just that relationship was probably very different than any other mother and son because of the age and their mission and everything.
Do you guys have any final thoughts about raising children in faith or about the Holy Family before we sign off?
Come to church with them. Just do it. You got plenty of people to help. Yep. And once we model, it'll just become, the younger you do it, it just becomes more natural. And that's what I tell all the families that come for baptism. Like, don't just come for baptism and then show up when they're in first grade, because they don't have that understanding then. So pray over them.
Yeah, I think Jesus he doesn't want, I tell our kids this all the time. My daughter likes to be perfect sometimes. I say, we don't expect perfection. I actually have to tell her sometimes to stop studying and go to bed. I'm like, you get good grades, you're doing well, like, go to bed, get some rest. Or when she makes a mistake and she feels really guilty, I said, maybe, okay, there might be some consequences or this or that, but we still love you. But my point is perfection, right? And we tell them, Jesus doesn't want us to be perfect. Nope. He wants your heart. And so that'd be my advice, just and the disciplines are good, and we need the disciplines, but just he wants your heart.
I was thinking about my mentor, one of my mentors in youth ministry, Michael, who's also a mentor and a role model in parenting for me. When I was in high school, he was the head of the diocesan youth ministry. And he told me that, and actually he was still in that job when I was a baby youth minister. So I had, many years of learning from him. And he said the same thing as a parent and as a youth minister, that we're in the business of making memories. And I think that's really important to remember, that it's those small moments that we give our kids, the memories of being at church, of praying as a family, of when things are difficult, we take care of each other and we love each other. The memories are important, not just because they're good memories or fun memories, but because they form our identity, right? Like, did you guys watch Inside Out, the movie?
Yes, and I finally saw the second one.
So
and I bawled again.
So the idea of like the core memories, the idea that we all have like core memories that like make up the pillars of our personality moving forward, I thought was really smart. And if we can just, as parents or as ministers in the church, youth ministers, create good memories of our kids practicing faith in imperfect ways, in real life ways, then that's all we can do. We're giving them the tools they need to become who God wants them to be.
Well, Dan, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
How was it?
Good. A little nervous, but
we're nervous too.
We got the wiggles out. So
we thank you for
being our first guest.
Yeah, first.
I was
guest.
the first.
You are the first
look at
guest.
that.
Congratulations!
I feel special now. All right,
you did it. We wish all of you a very happy holidays. Christmas is over, but we know many of you guys are snuggling up at home still.
Well, Christmas Day is over.
Christmas Day is over. We are still in the Christmas season, right until the baptism of the Lord in a few weeks. So
keep those trees up.
Yes, enjoy your families and be holy.
Which we already are.
Which we already are. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for taking a faith break with us today. Karen Luke and Ann Gallagher are lay ministers with the parishes of St. Catherine of Siena in Mendon, New York, and Church of the Transfiguration in Pittsford, New York. Thanks to our special guest today, Dan Hofford. More about our parishes, including weekly live-streamed Sunday Mass, can be found at stcath.org or transfigurationpittsford.org. Engineering today is by Jeff Beckett. Join us for new episodes of Faith Break, in studio on YouTube or on your favorite podcast or music app.